Jesse Leroy Brown made history as the first black naval aviator to complete U.S. Navy flight training and, unfortunately, as the first black naval aviator killed in combat during the Korean War. After his death, he was posthumously presented with the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Purple Heart, and the Air Medal. While Oscar W. Holmes was the first Navy pilot, Brown was the first to complete the Navy flight training program. This was not an easy task, not due to a lack of skills, but due to the prejudice of the day. Today, February the 6th, 2025, Lyles Station Historic Schoolhouse and Museum honors his sacrifices. Young Jesse Brown, born in 1926 in Mississippi, became fascinated with flight after going with his father to an air show in nearby Hattiesburg. His work ethic developed early as a paperboy delivering the Pittsburgh Courier, an African-American newspaper, which fueled his dream to be an aviator with articles about black pilots and aviators, as well as the articles in the Chicago Defender, an aviation magazine. He excelled in his high school academics, especially mathematics, all the while keeping his focus on someday being a pilot. While his high school principal advised him to enroll at an all-black college, he chose to follow in the track shoe footprints of another Jesse, 1936 Olympic track hero Jesse Owens, who attended Ohio State University, where he studied architectural engineering and, like the earlier Jesse, joined the track and field team. Aviation remained Jesse's dream, and he applied to Ohio State's aviation program several times during his freshman year. Racism turned him down. During his sophomore year, he applied to the U.S. Navy's V-5 Aviation Cadet Training Program. The Navy only offered it in 52 universities, none of them historically black. Had he heeded his principal's advice, he would not have had the opportunity to apply. Despite racial prejudice, he enlisted on July 8, 1946, in the U.S. Navy as Seaman Apprentice Brown, making him a member of the Officer Training Corps, NROTC. He was one of only 14 other African American candidates the year he graduated from Ohio State in 1947, out of a total of 5,600 candidates. These 14 men represented only 1/4 of a single percent. When he began flight school in March of 1947, he was the only African American in the program. Within a month, he was promoted to midshipman. While he was in Pensacola, he also married his high school sweetheart, Daisy Pearl Nix, but they had to keep their marriage secret due to military regulations. Jesse faced resentment throughout his training and his career, from both white aviators who resented him for being a black aviator and cadet, and from black cooks and janitors for being an officer. After advancing to ensign in 1949 and then earning his Naval Aviator badge, he was recognized in Life magazine and featured in an article by the Associated Press. These recognitions helped to clear the way for other black aviators who would follow his wings into the sky. He had broken the color barrier in the air. Ensign Brown earned the respect of his fellow pilots and was regarded with prestige, serving as a section leader within his squadron. Brown and the rest of his squadron found themselves aboard the USS Leyte in October 1950 as they entered the Korean theater. The Leyte was one of several aircraft carriers, providing close air support to ground forces. Then the Chinese entered the fracas. In December 1950, the tide turned against the Americans. Ensign Brown took to the sky in his Corsair to search for Marines reportedly in trouble. The Chinese and North Koreans fired on his plane, severing the main fuel line. Brown lost control, crashing over 2 miles northwest of the Chosin Reservoir. The Corsair broke in two at the cockpit section. The nose and engine section caught on fire, and the wings crumbled. Brown's leg was pinned, trapping him in the plane. It quickly became apparent to the other pilots that Brown was unable to escape the flaming wreckage. The flight leader sent for assistance, while the rest of the pilots circled to protect Brown from the enemy. Brown's wingman, Thomas Hudner, crash-landed near the plane, rushing to Brown to attempt a rescue. Despite his valiant efforts and the arrival of a rescue helicopter and crew, Brown remained trapped. Naval officials concluded that Brown died from the crash. Hudner argued with his commanding officers that he should be allowed to return and rescue Brown's body. With the situation on the ground quickly deteriorating, his pleas were denied. In a final act of respect to honor their fallen pilot, Hudner flew over both his plane and Brown's plane, conducting a napalm run to prevent the enemy from obtaining the planes and desecrating Brown's remains. As Hudner explained, they gave Brown a heroic Viking funeral, with the pilot and crew reciting the last rites for Ensign Jesse Brown. The United States government awarded Ensign Jesse Brown with the Distinguished Flying Cross for fighting the North Korean aggressors in 1950. In 1973, the Navy christened the USS Jesse L. Brown, a Knox-class frigate, in honor of Ensign Brown. For those who would like to learn more about the life and heroic death of Jesse Brown, Theodore Taylor's 1998 book, The Flight of Jesse Leroy Brown, and Adam Makos's 2015 book Devotion, an epic story of heroism, friendship, and sacrifice, reveal much more than this short video clip can, as does the 2022 Sony Pictures release of the movie Devotion.